The HuaTuoJiaJi points, 0.5 Tsun lateral to the divots between the spinous processes. Run the entire length of the spine. The inner UBShu points and the outer UBShu points are balancing and harmonizing, tonifying, in other words strengthening, for the entire body. So whether somebody has a physiological condition with one of their organs or is just a little bit tired or stressed out or pretty much anything, those points are good. And how I started off with static pressure, you can accomplish a very similar thing with the tuning forks. And with or without stones, and whether or not the stones are already heated, this is very lovely with hot stones, but even just a weighted stone. I'm going to place a stone on your sacrum. And then once you get it on the sacrum, it can be nice to actually slide it a little bit inferiorly to help the sacrum tilt this way. When you introduce the sound to the client, it's okay if it's matching tones high, matching tones low, or octave high and low. And hold it for the entire duration. Remember, our general rule of thumb is that hara and lower is generally better for the lower fork, and hara above is generally better for the higher fork, but there's plenty of times when you would not follow. It's a guideline, not a rule. Remember, you want to hit it against rubber, not something hard. We would obviously not activate it against a rock, but you don't want to hit it flat. You want to hit it on an angle. So if this is the side of the fork, I'm imitating with my hand. I want to hit it on the rubber on an angle like that. Just one each. And when you place it on a stone, roll it onto the stone. Put your hand on, then roll it onto the stone, the edge first. And then the higher fork is at the base of the skull, right in the middle, at the base of the occiput. This can be used just as a relaxing static hold, but if you use your intention and feel and direct the vibration of the forks communicating to each other, this can actually also be used to induce a still point, just like craniosacral. But whereas the legs with craniosacral, you tend to feel the breath-like rhythm like this. When you're talking directly to the spinal cord with craniosacral, you tend to feel the breath-like rhythm flowing like this. And you may also notice that the occiput and the sacrum tend to as well go like this, into flexion and extension. Hand first, side of the fork, and then flat fork. Base of the occiput right in the middle.
Is that one have a number? Like K or
It's a dew point, which is the governing vessel, where all the yang energy of the body travels. And this point in the middle on the sacrum is as well. So all the points up the midline of the back are governing vessel, and all the points up the midline of the front are ren, or conception vessel. So all the yang of the body travels the back, and all the yin of the body travels the front. And it's a big circle. Most people would enjoy the weight of the rock, whether it's heated or not, but of course you could check in with your client. The rocks, stones, tend to sort of take the vibration of the tuning forks in a very nice, deep, calm way into the body. It's lovely on the hara, or really any of the chakras. And her breath has changed quite a bit, even in this short duration. And do you like the rock on your sacrum?
Yes.
They're very grounding. So now I'm going to actually focus on inducing a still point. So I'm concentrating my attention to how the vibration travels in through the spinal cord and the craniosacral fluid that flows around it. It's going to feel very similar to waves, very, very gentle waves. It feels very similar to the breath, but it follows a different speed than the breath. And you'll notice places that it gets kind of caught up. And whether you're feeling for craniosacral rhythm or not, there we go. When you have two tuning forks and points on the body that are in relationship to each other, whether it's a high and a low or two highs or two lows, the vibration will often tend to kind of ping pong back and forth. So there's kind of like a, there's a wave like pulsing coming from the forks, but they will often, start to kind of go like this, back and forth. And you can use how that sensation travels to kind of assess where things are kind of stuck in the body, and sort of like myofascial release, use that to help actually facilitate openings in the body, whether it be fascially or emotionally. And while the tuning forks send a pure vibration, which is like if you imagine water pouring into dry land, it would sort of soak into the areas that it was needed. And it is a pure vibration, but nonetheless you still want to hold a safe space for the client and make sure that you're grounded yourself. So using the 3-point contact of your feet is very useful, the heels, the big toe and the little toe, and breathing into your own hara. Even if you're feeling tired or in not such a great space, the forks do such a good job of sending a nice clear vibration that they still do a good job. But the treatments will be just so amazingly profound if you can hold a good space yourself and set a good intention. So let's talk to the HuaTuoJiaJi points. Remember that the way you find these is by finding the little mountain tops of the spinous processes, and then the space between them you tuck right next to the space between them. 0.5 tsun, which is like tucked right into the lamina groove, and your fingers will fall right into that space. Your fingers may sometimes fall into a space that is not level, because they're going to follow, if there's any curves or rotations of the vertebra, they're going to follow those curves or rotations, and that's where the point actually is. So sometimes you may actually be angled up or down if the person has scoliosis or if they have just one vertebra sublexed. So follow the natural divot where your fingers go. These points are pretty darn easy to find because the spinous processes are pretty obvious, and then you just find the little divot between. But what you want to do is find a fluid way to find them so that you're able to put the forks down, pretty quickly. And so what I usually do is kind of feel for the points, and you can sort of, mark them with your mind or remember them. And then when you land, you can just land right in the divot. And if you need to use another hand or finger to make sure that you're in the right spot, you can kind of sink in there. You're going to use the rest of your hand, the side of your hand, and your fingers to stabilize. It's more comforting. And your rest of your hand can be sensing where their breath is traveling, how their tissue is responding, if there's any therapeutic pulses, how quickly the vibration dissipates. And remember, if the vibration gets sucked in really quickly, dissipates very quickly, those are generally spots that you want to repeat. I think the biggest mistake that beginners may make with that is maybe thinking that a point was sucking out all the vibration when maybe you activated that one a little bit with less vibration, or accidentally stopped the vibration by holding too high up on the fork. Remember, you want to hold it from here down to the stem. So if you accidentally deaden the vibration with your own fingers, or perhaps in the time it takes you to get from here to here, you accidentally brush it on yourself or the client or the table, so then it really isn't as strong to get started. So it's not a big deal if you accidentally do that, but you just kind of want to practice giving a nice consistent vibration and knowing when it's the client's body sort of sucking up the vibration, or whether you accidentally didn't really activate the fork that well. You want to press into the tissue with just enough pressure that the vibration really travels through well, which will be pretty light pressure when you're right over a bone, and a little bit deeper when you're in more fleshy spots. You could hang out as long as 2 or 3 full cycles in every spot, or let's say you were doing a general tune-up, you could actually travel several points in the course of one vibration.
Where did you start? How high up?
You could start up as high up as about C5, C6, C7. And of course the spinous process that sticks out further is C7. Anywhere up about there. If a client has a particularly sublexed vertebra or scoliosis in an area, or they actually have tension in a particular area or pain, then you could focus on those HuaTuos and UBShus more. You don't necessarily have to go all the way down the spine. I can feel where the spinous process is with one finger and fall into the divot with the forks. And you can totally make little adjustments when you're already on the body with the forks. So you may feel like you need to shift the forks around a little bit, or kind of like nestle in, like how a cat finds a nice comfortable spot. Let the body draw you in. This is like dropping a pebble into a nice still pond. You kind of let the little ripple effects come out. And good body mechanics is just as important with tuning forks as anything else. Although whenever it's comfortable for you, that you can be sitting when you do them. But you don't want to be all straight-legged and hunched over. You will take on more of the client's stuff when you do that. You'll get more tired out. The forks will still do their job. which is kind of a nice thing about them, even when you're tired or in pain. Like, you can still treat yourself. Like, if you have a bunch of massages to do in a day and you're not feeling that well, say you have a headache or menstrual cramps or you're just tired, you can use tuning forks on yourself in the middle of the day. And even if you don't have a lot of energy, the forks will still do your job for you. So you can kind of give yourself a tune-up in the middle of the day. And this works just as well whether the client's clothes is on or off. So like, you can use it for seated massage. But if there are bra straps, the vibration will go right through bra straps or any kind of clothing. You can just estimate, like, if you can't in that particular area feel where the spinous process is, you're going to be totally fine if you're a little bit off in that one location. Some people are not that precise at all when they find acupressure points with tuning forks. And because the vibration is kind of like ripples in a pond, it's probably okay. But I can actually feel that the effect is even more powerful if you're right in the middle of the point. Just like any massage technique, you want to let your hands be soft and relaxed and not be holding tension in your hands. That way they can be nurturing and supportive, grounding and comforting and listening to the client. You can use the rest of your hands to let the vibration of the fork, the vibration from the forks will come out through your hands. And also you can feel the vibration of the forks travel through their body, and you can use that as an assessment tool. So if you feel, for example, the vibration of the forks traveling well here, but then it kind of gets stuck here, then you can know there's something getting it stuck here, and you can treat that with forks or other techniques. To have a couple vertebrae that are harder to feel the spinous processes, and especially in the lumbar area, there's usually a couple that are harder to feel. And in that case, I would not at all hesitate or worry about being in the exact right spot. You might be a little too superior, inferior, and that's okay. If you like to work with intention, the tuning forks are amazing tools of intention. So whatever positive intentions you want to have, the forks can help magnify that. They can do just about anything. So you guys, for example, were playing with colors with your hands yesterday, sending colors, or sending things from nature like waterfalls or the sunshine or trees, or the forks can help send those kind of things if you like to do that. And this one is feeling a little more stuck. It didn't suck up the vibration super quickly, but the vibration didn't radiate as well. It's kind of like stuck fascia. So I'll just talk to that one a little bit longer. And what some people will do when there is stuck fascia is they will actually do MFR and tuning forks at the same time. So you can either use one hand. Oh wow, that's very nice. I can feel the vibration travels to here and it stops there. So I can use one hand to help with MFR. Or some people will just use the fork itself for MFR or trigger points. So you could actually slide the fork right over areas that are a little bit stuck. And you could do this with 2 forks at a time, or you could do this with 1 fork at a time. Just like when you first learn hot stone massage, some of you kind of get married to the idea of a stone in each hand. You don't really need a fork in each hand either. So you can use one hand to sense and to do any technique you would do with body work, and you can even use it with the forks. So anything I want to transmit, like I can get into a spot that's adhered, whether it's a trigger point or an adhesion, and I can send the fork vibration right through my hand. And when you practice this enough, a really cool trick, when you practice this enough, you don't even need the forks, because you learn how to make that same exact vibration with your hands. The vibration of the forks can be very relaxing and powerfully healing and profound, but if they're just floating in the air, they can be a little bit disconcerting or ungrounding. So remember, you want to use your whole soft hand and even your whole forearm when it works out. So you can have, just like you would with MFR, or effleurage, where you would have like your whole arm. You could have your whole arm sometimes even when you're doing tuning fork work. And again, that vibration is going to literally travel through your arm. As you get sensitive to the sensation of the vibration, like I can feel it traveling all the way down my hips and my legs as well. And now basically we can use tuning forks up her whole spine at the same time. One thing that's a little bit more subtle when you first play with forks, and I know a lot of you are doing a lot of fun work with the forks, it can be, I guess maybe because we listen to so much loud music and we're bombarded by so much loud stuff all the time, sometimes we can't even feel them or hear them at first. And so I know some of you kind of hit them too hard and then they go bleh, or you hit them a bunch of times because you can't feel them. Kind of similar but not as extreme is to feel like you need to like keep like really fast, like as soon as it stops you need to go, or it like hasn't even stopped and you keep going. Just like music or the still point in massage, the quiet or the space between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves, or it's like the rhythm in music. So in order to have a rhythm in music, you have, you know, the tones and no tones, and the tones and the no tones. So start to feel the spaces when you're not applying the sound just as much as when you are applying the sound, and it kind of travels through the body in those times when you're not applying it, and also the client just kind of has a moment. I could use the medium forks the entire length, but for many people the longer forks are going to be good when we get down lower. And you may notice that the angle of the forks changes in different spots of the body. So as I sink in and feel the contours of the bones, I'm changing the angles to match. This could be really nice if there's just, say, like an area that has if you have like a resistant trigger point or an area of muscle that's really stuck, sometimes just the gentleness of the forks will dissipate something that is rather stuck. So you might even be doing like a deeper technique. And then just adding the vibration at the same time can kind of help release. Do you have any questions about the HuaTuoJiaJi points? If you're not going to travel the entire length of the spine, this is still vibrating, by the way. If you're not going to travel the length of the whole spine, let's say somebody just has a low back problem or 1 or 2 subluxed vertebrae, it's always nice to at least talk to a couple of vertebrae, superior and inferior, from where you're treating. So let's say around T5 was subluxed, I would treat from about T3, T4, T5, T6, T7 to talk to that one segment that's out of whack. And then UBShu's, inner and outer. You probably remember the basic location, but to remind you about what these points are all about, they balance and tonify the whole body, and at every level there's a correspondence. So for example, at the level of T3, which is about level with the spine of the scapula, corresponds with the lungs. So again, we're talking about the divots between the mountaintops. Only now you're going to be 1.5 soon out from the midline for the inner shoe, and 3 soon out from the outer shoe, midline for the outer shoe. And that 3 soon is at the spine of the scapula and the medial border of the scapula. That's right at the medial border of the scapula. And then going from a straight line down like that. Remember, most people's scapulas angle, but you're going from where the spine is to the medial border from a straight line down. That's 3 soon, and then 1.5 is halfway. So at the level of T3 is the lungs, T4 pericardium, T5 heart, and so on. And there's correspondences all the way down. But if you treat all of them, it just balances and harmonizes the whole body. The inner shoe is more about physical stuff, and the outer shoe is more about emotional stuff, but almost always the two come together as an inseparable package, like yin and yang, and so in general you want to treat the inner shoe and the outer shoe. All the way down is a lovely balancing and harmonizing treatment, but let's say somebody has like a lung issue, like they had pneumonia or bronchitis or emphysema or grief because a loved one died, then you could, let's say you don't have time to treat all the way down, you could just treat at the level of T3, inner and outer shoe. And I'll show you points on the front of the chest that are also good for grief, but just as an example of how you might talk to the shoe points without talking to the whole lung. I'm not going to show you the slow version I did with the HuaTuoJiaJis, but the same idea applies, where if you had time, you could talk to every single level up to, 2 to 5 full activations of the forks until the vibration completely dissipates. Or, if you don't have time, you can actually use one set of vibration to travel down a couple, and then reactivate and travel down a couple. If you want to travel quickly, you can find the spinous process with one finger, find it again, and you're always going just below it because you're going for the divot. sinking into the muscle tissue so the vibration travels. And of course you're going to hit some areas that have some more adhered tissue, some tighter knots and things, and you can press a little bit deeper in those spots. This spot seemed like a lot of work would happen, so I'll give it one round of actual treatment where I would actually listen to the tissue and see what it needs. And because my hands are on her body, I can feel when the muscles are releasing, when there's therapeutic pulses, when there's sort of resistance, and when the vibration travels. So in the middle of that, there was some twitching going on here, and this area would definitely need more treatment if we had time.